The idea came straight away. We grabbed it. Actually, let's do that, and we designed and put things together. And I know with Sangeeta around, it's safe. I know she will do it a very fantastic job, so we don't have to worry. Otherwise, we have to worry about the speaker content. All that is not a problem now. And I think hopefully in few months this will really pick up with our digital library. All these books will be available. People can log in and read. Let's see. I think that should be that's our objective. We develop an app. People can download the app and read all the books, videos from our library. Shall we start, Sangeeta? People, I'll just take what. Good evening. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it's indeed my proud privilege to welcome each one of you to another edition of our evening engagement with you. And today is something different, actually, where we thought we have to bring in this. And I was just talking to the distinguished panelists. I will tell you. Before that, let me briefly tell you, because still the people are in the queue, logging in, waiting room. I think I'll give them 2-3 minutes so that we have a good number. They don't miss the opening remarks. And from the beginning, the discussion with our distinguished panelists. We have some outstanding program lined up for you. The next program is happening on 20th of July. We have my tries with entrepreneurship and the roller coaster ride. We got Richa Bajpai, founder, Godera campus. I think it's a very interesting startup venture which has done so well. It's worth coming and come and listen to them. Especially students must listen because most of the funding happens to the student education level. And we have Maithili Chandrasekhar, consumer behavior and brand strategy specialist, and Pratap Kumar will be in conversation with Richa. Then on the 22nd, we have Innovation Strategy for SMEs, Kannan Lakshmi Narayanan, Director of Skillberry Training. It's one of the very good Skillberry, functioning from IT Research Park. They will be talking to us, and this is a program which we have brought exclusive for SMEs, and large number of our outreach program chapters located at Atur, Salem, Namakkal, Pondicherry, Trichy. All the people will be joining us for this event, but it's also open to all our members. Then on Wednesday, the 28th of July, we have Startup India, Opportunities and Excitement. We have Rogini Mani and Dr. Ranjini Mani, mother and daughter. Their successful entrepreneurial journey. And we have Shankar. Shankar is the founder and director of CAMPS and ACOS Investment Private Limited. He'll be leading the conversation with them. On 29th, again, we have a very interesting event. We are going to celebrate the Golden Jubilee celebration of victory in the 1971 war. I don't know how many of you must have read in the newspaper. The Prime Minister launched a flame which is going around the country to celebrate the victory flame, as they call it, going around the entire nook and corner of the country to celebrate. And it's coming to Chennai. And we are hosting a celebration in honoring, commemorating the 1971 victory. And we are indeed privileged to have 3 outstanding war veterans of 1971 who fought the war and awarded Veer Chakra during the war will be going to be coming and talking to us on the 29th of July. And Lieutenant General Arun is the General Officer commanding of the Dakshina Bharat area of the entire South. He'll be leading the conversation with Rear Admiral Ram Saga, is AVM, VRC, and Neva NM. And Colonel Krishna Swami is retired Veer Chakra, VSM, again, 71 operations. Colonel Suresh Rajan, Sena Medal, again from 71 operations. So this is happening, and due to the social protocol, we'll be having maybe around 50 people, and MMA the flame will come, and we honor the flame and recognize these people. But you all listen to that online. It will be a very, very inspiring story to listen to them and recapture what happened in 71. I know the stories of these 2 gentlemen who are going to be sharing with you is outstanding. So this is happening on 29th of July. Then we also lined up a number of events for you for the month of August and September, including some outstanding talk on China, then a number of other events, book reading every 3rd Friday, which is going to be there with you. Then we're also having international speakers coming and talking to you on how it's impacting the mind management, different countries. The COVID has impacted, but it's impacted the mind, impacted the social, emotional issues. Is it impacted in the same level? All countries, different level. I think we are getting a speaker from USA, Singapore, and Malaysia to come and discuss one of the leading consultant in this field. So like that, we are lined up some outstanding events all through the August and September. Please don't miss it. On the 3rd of September, again, we are going to have our flagship event and our MMA AGM and the MMA award function. Notwithstanding the pandemic time and difficult time, still we have got a very good response for our award. We got an MMA award for Magical Excellence, recognizing COVID warriors who have done excellent time in COVID. So we thought we'll go away from the industry and recognize the people who really contributed to the safety, welfare of so many people. So, and also our innovation award is gone national. This time the innovation award is going to be recognized at national level, which is going to be at nation level broadcast in one of the national television. It's happening. So we also got very good nominations for this. We reached out to a couple of lakhs of people, innovators around India. So with the digital, we are able to do quite a bit of things which otherwise we wouldn't have been dreamt of doing this. Thanks to indirectly to the pandemic, which also taught us how you can do so many things, which otherwise would have thought no, only aisa nahi hota. We couldn't have gone to the people other than Chennai or South India. Thanks to the. Now coming to today's topic, this is very very different. When Sangeeta Sumesh spoke to us, and we really thought this very very different theme, and only one objective is read and grow. And we strongly believe that this is very very important for each one of us, because we believe that this is the one which is going to make all the difference. Not only the people who are working, there are also people who are studying. We want to make them a lifelong learner. That will happen only when you start engaging yourself reading. Because as the topic itself says, read and grow. Books are very important for the mind, heart, and soul. And the day, we firmly believe today's readers are tomorrow's leaders, and it's true. Because I have seen in MMA, there's so many of outstanding speakers who have come and spoken. Most of them to habits which I always found them is they get up early in the morning and they're all voracious readers. And without fail, every CEO whom I met, I come across in MMA, I had a privilege of actually meeting a couple of hundreds of CEOs. Each one of them had this habit of taking care of their health very well. And they read a lot of books, and they are very, very knowledgeable in every subject. So and in that context, and the event which we are going to be doing it today, $1 trillion Coach Leadership Handbook on Silicon Valley, Bill Campbell. If you read this story of Bill Campbell, it will be inspiring. I think that the distinguished panelists will be joining, sharing with you. And if you get an opportunity, read this book and also listen to the panelists, because they're going to be sharing their perspective. Let me warmly welcome Sangeeta Shankaran Sumesh in conversation with Sandeep Kher and Sakaar Anand, one of the finest panelists we have for this topic, very carefully chosen. And as usual, I'll take this opportunity to welcome all the viewers who are joining this program from all our social media portals, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also our webcast, which is reaching. And you have any question to the panelists relevant to the theme, relevant to the book, please restrict your question to only the theme and relevant to the book. You can type your question on the numbers which is on your screen, so that all the questions we compile, my team will put across to the distinguished panelists to respond to all your questions. Now, let me have the privilege of introducing distinguished panelists for this evening. Sangeeta Shankaran Sumesh really doesn't need an introduction for MMA audience, because she's been a regular speaker at MMA platform. She's a business coach, best-selling author, and over 25 years of corporate experience. And last year, it was CFO of Dun & Bradstreet Technologies. And it happens to many when you are a very, very lucrative career, but you leave that and that entrepreneurial bug takes you. I think that is what has happened to Sangeeta. And she's a very high-performance business coach too, International Coaching Federation, and a great TEDx speaker, best-selling author. She's an independent director of IAB Industries Limited, and also married to Sumesh and 2 children. And we always welcome Sangeeta because she's such a perfection, plans so well, and we're all looking forward to hearing. Thanks, Sangeeta, for joining us this evening, and also facilitating one of the great initiatives which we are so happy to host and implement in MMA. Let me have the privilege of introducing the next distinguished speaker for this evening. Is Sandeep Kher, Director of Portfolio Finance, Secure Capital, India and Southeast Asia. And Sandeep must be really a very happy man this evening, being Zomato oversubscribed by almost 70 times, because Secure is the one which invested first in Zomato. Congratulations for picking up the best one a couple of years ago when they came to the market. But Sandeep is a seasonal leader, almost 2 decades of experience in building businesses, and he's also passionate about exploring and engaging with new ideas. Currently works in Secure Capital, as I mentioned to you earlier. In addition to his domain role, Secure, he also works closely with a few companies, supporting them on all aspects of building businesses, working directly with the founders and CEO. Very warm welcome to you, Sandeep. It's indeed a privilege to welcome you. I know how busy you are, but you joined us for discussion this evening. Privileged to have you with us. Thanks so much, and warm welcome to you. Let me introduce the next distinguished speaker of this for the panel this evening. Is Sakaar Anand is an India country head and head of HR BMC Software. And Sakaar is a global leader with over 24 years of experience in human resources, and Prior to joining BMC, he's worked in a number of other companies, including BNY Mellon Technologies Limited. He's also had a long stint with CA Technologies, and he's also holds a BTech degree in mechanical engineering and from the National Institute of Technology, Kurukshetra, and also a graduate and certificate in business management from the XLRA Jamshedpur. He enjoys watching Hindi movies, listening to ghazals, and does accommodate a few golf rounds in his weekend. And he's a golfer. I can tell you, he could be a good HR manager because you know how to really manage people, your partners, your time. And very warm welcome to Sakaar Anand, and it's indeed a privilege to have you with us. Now I'll request Sangeeta Sumesh Shankaran to please take over, and we are looking forward to an inspiring evening, Sangeeta. Thank you once again, and over to you, Sangeeta.
Thank you very much, Group Captain, for the lovely introduction, and awesome thanks, many thanks to MMA for having these sessions of read and grow, because like we know, the book reading habit is kind of dying down, and I think this is a great initiative to get started. And by sharing different perspectives, one can get the gist of each book and in the essence of each book, because there are so many excellent books, and definitely all of us can't manage to read everything. So I think congratulations to MMA for this awesome initiative. And we have, like you said, awesome speakers. Sakaar is going to be sharing with us from the HR perspective, and of course Sandeep is going to be sharing about the book from the investor perspective. So like you said, they have been very carefully chosen for this evening. So before we deep dive into the book, like Simon Sinek says, start with why. So let me just give you a brief background on why this book is being chosen. So being a business coach, when this book was launched, I was very intrigued and I was very curious because the title said $1 Trillion Coach. And I was like, what can it be? And then I found out that this book has been written by all the executives at Google. So I said, okay, there must be something special about it. So I managed to lay my hands on this book a couple of years ago. And I was so impressed reading it. And I only wish Bill Campbell was alive and I had the opportunity to meet him. I was so inspired reading this book. So like I mentioned, this book is about the late Bill Campbell. He started off as a football coach, and then he became a business executive, and then ultimately a business coach. And he has coached many of the bigwigs of Silicon Valley, right from Steve Jobs to Eric Schmidt to Sundar Pichai, Sheryl Sandberg. I mean, the list just goes on. So he is like an amazing person. If I were to sum up this book in just one sentence, the $1 Trillion Coach will help you become a better leader at work. Now, you may ask me how. This book shares about the life and the teachings of the late coach, Bill Campbell. And because he helped to build the multi-billion dollar business of the Silicon Valley. He's worked with many of these bigwigs, like I said, and he's managed to mold and shape many of these companies. What you can also learn from this book is that you get to know a bit more about coaching and how it works and what it's to work with a coach. And I also found that this book has actually, it breaks 3 myths about coaching. The first myth being, many of us think, oh, I don't need a coach, I'm good enough, right? But then what I really, took as a takeaway from this book is, I found that everybody needs a coach. When the bigwigs have been working with a coach, right? Why should, any of us not be working with a coach? And what I also liked, and I think probably what Bill Campbell really followed was, like I said, he started his career as a football coach. Now, if you were to look into the sports world, even the best of players, irrespective of whichever field, right, whichever sport, they all work with a coach. So it made me wonder, why should the business world be any different? The second myth I thought that it breaks was, it gives a very subtle difference between mentoring and coaching. All of us have been used to the fact of mentoring. But at this book, subtly brings out this difference by, emphasizing on the fact that a coach doesn't tell, right? Coach gives your thoughts, challenges you, and makes you come out with the best solution for whatever challenge that you have. The third myth this book breaks is the coach need not be a domain expert. Now, if you were to notice Bill Campbell, he coached both the competitors, that is Apple and Google, but he did not coach them on strategy. So what did he coach them on? He coached them on being better leaders, being better team members, and how to build trust with people, which I think is the essence of leadership. So a little more about the book. After Bill Campbell, was, the football coach, and then he moved to the business world. He was working with companies like Kodak, Apple, and many others, and then he became the business coach. And he had a great impact by, working with these leaders. And a lot of these choices the leaders made and the progress they made were thanks to Bill Campbell, that they were able to build $1 trillion companies. And one of the simplest ways, you must be wondering, how can some person manage to do this? So one of the simplest ways that Bill followed, guess what, was just listening to others. Because Bill was known to be focusing his full attention on the people when they talked, and he used to ask them the right sort of questions. In this busy world, sometimes we don't have enough time to listen to other people, and that's what Bill did by just listening to them and asking them the right sort of questions. And I must mention this special thing about the book. What I liked is Campbell's methods that made him a great champion was he brought in many women to the board, right? He made the women sit on the table and be part of the board meetings. And he continued to support women in the business throughout his career. So the top three things that stood out for me from this book, if I were to very quickly summarize. One, this sentence really struck a chord with me. He says, people are the foundation of any company's success, and people should be treated as an asset. Now, me being a chartered accountant, of course, people and asset, it was like glaring, and it really stood out for me. And I really liked this line a lot. The second thing that really stood out for me was Bill's, the framework of coaching he used to follow on one-on-one. He used to follow and, ensure he would focus on the performance for the job requirements. He would focus on the relationship, with peers. And he would also focus on the management and the leadership style of coaching. And of course, he would encourage innovation and the best practices and how the business can move forward. And the last thing that really stood out for me was he says, compensation, that is the salary, isn't about the value of money. It is an emotional value. And that is so true because, with the salary comes a lot of emotion, right? So these were the three things that really stood out for me. And now I would love to hear from both the panelists. So Sandeep, what is it that you like about the book?
I mean, before I kind of jump onto that question of yours, I really like to thank you, MMA, for doing this. I think all of us are losing the good habit, old habit of reading books. And I read this book, a couple of years back, actually even more. And I thought I'll probably do a refresh when you and me spoke about this. And I went around looking for a book, and guess what? Everybody told me they don't have a hard copy. Why don't you go online and read this? And I was like, no, I mean, I'm a little old school. I still like, holding a book in my hand and reading it. But thank you so much for doing this and bringing this old habit back and discussing themes like this, because, while 2 or 3 people may read it, but you could influence many a mind by bringing this discussion to shore. I honestly wish that, I had this book when I was starting out as a manager early in my career to help me navigate through some of the difficult phases of managing large teams. And quite honestly, back in the day when I started, the concept of startups and etc. was still very, very novel. There were not as many companies, and who were starting out, you would classically start from a big organization and then move your way up and think about doing more things or different things. So clearly, I mean, I thought that this book could have been very handy when I was starting as a manager. But having said that, I think the book does a great job of bringing together, how you have to be, how you could be a great manager, how you could have, get those leadership traits. The stories were great. The examples were very meaningful. I mean, there are immense and a lot of takeaways for managers, how to hire, how to lead, how to conduct meetings, how to give feedback, how to bring love to work. I mean, quite honestly, that was my most profound learning of this book. That how do you bring that aspect of human being into your workplace? Also, I think while I was going through the book, it gave me immense confidence and clarity to continue to do some of the good things that I was doing, but most importantly, reflect upon things which I wasn't doing. And I can probably share an example over here. for folks who know me, and who work with me, clearly would resonate with me in the mornings, because when I used to walk into the office, or even at home, and I would be a little tough, and I would be a little rough, and I would be deep in my thoughts in terms of how I have to start my day and what I need to do and what I should be focusing on, and so on and so forth. And not many people understood that, and quite rightfully so, because when you might meet somebody grumpy in the morning, you would not really relate to it. But I think what this book at least brought a change in me was when I read this chapter, and I realized what kind of a difference can you make when you're passing by in the elevator, or walking down the hallway, or see a group of people in the cafeteria. What should you do? I mean just a casual hello and going and checking their pulse will make immense difference in the way they see you, and you could see your team and the people around you. And the Bill's philosophy of pushing yourself to do it till it becomes second nature, you know definitely help. Though I'll also be honest that I don't think so it still becomes second nature, but I'm very conscious about it. I'm mindful of the fact that when I today walk in, how should that be, and what should I do? And even there are days when the good old habit creeps in, but at least I get reminded by that this has to change. I think the other aspect, which and I'm sure we'll talk more about leadership, we'll talk more about how to groom people, but and what really impressed me was that Bill wasn't successful when he started. He was a coach of a and he was actually before that he was a part of a football team where not many people gave him a chance to, or believed him in succeeding, right? I mean, given his how he I mean, I've never met him, so I don't know what he looked like and what he weighed like, but at least when you read the book or you go online and research about him, you will know that he didn't have the physical strength to be a football team player, yet he was given the most valuable player of his high school football team. Yes, because in his heart he never believed that he couldn't do it. And I think for me, I think that resonated very well. And I think I just touch upon the other fact that the power of love at office. I think for me, if I would talk about one change, which the book brought in me, slowly but surely, was this about how you should care and how not to separate the human and the working self, right? I think that was for me the important aspects. And I can go on and on of talking about the book in terms of the learnings and the impact that it had, but for me, I think these were two profound things that actually have stood with me for thus far.
Excellent. Thank you, Sandeep. I mean, it's really nice to know the kind of impact it's had on you. And I can totally relate to it because, especially we finance people, we are just so muddled up in our work and we seldom tend to connect with people. So, yes, definitely this book, I think, gives the spark to connect. So, thanks for sharing. Sakaar, what have been your key takeaways from the book?
So again, first, before I jump into that, like Sandeep, I echo his thoughts. Um, this is a great platform. So thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you, MMA, for inviting me here. I had not read this book. Sangeeta, you and I got in touch about 10 days ago, and I have tried to read the book as much as I could in the last 10 days. Like Sandeep, I couldn't lay my hand on a physical book. This is the first time I read the book on a Kindle. And I am also very old school. I love to smell paper. I didn't enjoy the Kindle, but I enjoyed the book. I definitely enjoyed the book. It was a great book, and I'm glad that you reached out, so I got to read this wonderful book. One thing which stood out for me, and it's similar to what Sandeep said, is about being an authentic leader. Be genuine at your workplace, and it's okay to show your emotions. The book talks about Bill blowing kisses, giving beer hugs, even about profanity. Though personally, I would not advocate profanity at workplace. But you have to be who you are. People should know the real person. People should know the human being behind you. And I do believe it's okay to show your sentiment at workplace. I am big time into cricket, and I tell people many times that my mood swings with how India plays. So it happens that I just can't take it away from me. I'm a stickler on time, so I'm always on time. So even if I start my meetings, people show up a minute late, they can see it on my face. it goes away after a while, but they can see it on my face. So, I believe in carrying those sentiments at the workplace because that's the real who you are. And I what from the book, what stuck with me was the fact that Bill used to go and visit Steve Jobs when he was in the hospital. So that was something which really stood out. Stood out for me. The other thing was when Bill started in the Silicon Valley in the 80s, it was an industry dominated by men. And I don't know if, I think you mentioned it, Sangeeta. He was somebody who believed in the concept of what we call DEI today. He believed it back in those days 40 years ago, and he believed in it because he felt that every idea counts, and you don't know which mind that brilliant idea is sitting on. It could be sitting in one corner because you never give that person a seat on the table, and you missed out on on a great idea. And so I remember there was the HR head for Apple at that point of time, and he brought that lady onto the table. And there were these men who were used to dominate that table actually asked the question that why is she here? And he said, because I asked her to be here. And my third thought relates back or links back to this thing is, if you are somebody who's fair and transparent, you build trust in the ecosystem. Right. And when you build trust in the ecosystem, people might disagree with the idea that you are propagating, but they will not disagree with you as a person. So what I mean by that is that, what moves forward is the idea, and, it doesn't get shot down because of the person who's proposing it. And that's the power of building trust. And you can, and I'll relate all three together. You can build trust when you're genuine at workplace, when you are who you are, you show it. People know that you haven't created walls around you, and you are transparent in your fair. So these are the three things that I would say, stood out for me. Again, like Sandeep, if I had read this book 15 years ago, I think I would have done things very differently when I started myself as a manager. But there's, in Hindi, I'll say it in Hindi. Jab aankh khule tabhi savera. I'll do it better from here on.
Yes, I can't agree more with both of you because definitely, had we started it out much earlier, we probably would have been better managers at work, better leaders at work. But yeah, I also believe that it's better late than never. So I think that way it's good to get started. So Sandeep, tell us, this book, if you were to look at the subtitle, it says Silicon Valley's Leadership Handbook. So I'd like to get your perspective. What are your thoughts on encouraging the coaching culture amongst the funded startups? What is the investor's perspective that you can share with us there?
I think if there is still a debate around it, then I think people are still asking the wrong question. Steve Jobs, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Bezos, Sheryl Sandberg felt the need for it. Then I guess most of us, also feel and, will have that need. I think even in the book, if you read, I think one of the chapters touches upon this fact that Eric, who was, I think in Google for 17 plus years, who was the chairman of the company, and when his full-time engagement was coming to an end, like anybody else, he also discovered that he needed emotional support. And, at that point of time, Bill was not there. And he felt that he needed a coach even then, after 17 years of being at Google, right? And after having him for so many years with him. So I think this question is probably, not relevant. I think what the question is relevant is when is the time when you're ready. And I think the book also touches upon it in a very beautiful way. And Bill talks about it, that whenever you're coachable, I think that is the right time for you to start jumping into it. And, we see that a lot in the startup ecosystem, that, when you start as a 20, 22, 23-year-old, as a startup founder, of course, the vision is very different. The energy levels are different. The thought process is very different. So I think it's, it's about how do you, cultivate that as a process over a period of time, and then bring in at the element of coaching. And not necessarily it has to be put across like coaching, but it can be done in many different ways. And I can probably, my own example, very early in my career, I had this, privilege of being offered this opportunity. When my CFO brought it up to me, I was repulsed by that idea. Because, I felt, why do I need coaching? I mean, is there something wrong? I mean, what am I doing wrong? You tell me. So he said, no, I mean, just, you can become a better person. It took a little time for me to accept that. And, and thankfully, for me, this didn't happen late in my career. It happened early on. And that's the reason I was so strongly against it. But, when I went through the motion of sitting with my coach it started every week and then went on to every fortnight. We used to go outside of office, catch up for over 2 hours. I realized what he was doing with me. I realized what the power of that whole coaching session, brought into me. And therefore, after personally going through it as well, I can tell you that, uh, this is probably needed by everybody. But of course, it has to begin at a time and place where you think you're ready for it. Because otherwise it'll not do you or the coach any good if you're not in that right frame. And quite honestly, I mean, in today's world, when every company wants to succeed, every company wants to, innovate and do this at breakneck speed. What the only way to, do this well is when you integrate coaching, hand-holding as part of the organization culture. And if you don't do that, I think then organizations will fall apart, because if people are not together, then I think organizations and teams will not succeed. So for me, I think this is a thing that everybody has to do. I think the important aspect to look for is when to do it, because every individual, every organization, every team goes through its phase. And quite recently also, I mean, I've been at Sequoia now for 5 years. When I joined, one of my team members really didn't feel that they needed any guidance. I mean, and it takes time to build that trust. It takes time to get to an understanding in a place where you think that you can go and talk to this person in a more free spirited way. And I think this was touched upon earlier as well. I think that you need to give it time. You need to get the person to know that you have his well-being and care at the core of your heart, because till the time that's not there, I think coaching doesn't work. I think those are some of the aspects. I don't know if I answered your question directly, but
Right.
at least my take on coaching is that I think everybody needs it. I think the timing is more important.
Yes, absolutely right. What also I liked about the book is they say like will to coach only the coachable. So that you definitely brought it out. And yes, a coach helps to maximize your performance potential, and they need to be ready and accepted. Thanks for sharing that, Sandeep. Sakar, when Google did this study behind the high performing teams, one of the things that came out was the psychological safety, and that was at the top in Google survey. So, how do you think, being considering your HR background, how do you think psychological safety can be built in the current day in organizations, especially with remote leadership? What are your thoughts on that?
So, a couple of things there first. Human beings are wired in a way that they fear failure. Some more, some less, but inherently we are afraid of failure, and we are looking for conformity in everything that we do. So, as a leader, it's very important for us to reduce that failure, and that can only be done when we encourage our people to try new things, charter new territories, venture into areas which have not been tried before. But when we ask our people to do that, what we should also do is we should celebrate those failures if people fail in those areas, right? Because it's a celebration of courage and it's a celebration of learning, right? Failing is okay, but not learning from that failure is not okay, right? So, and this starts at the top. So as a leader, I need to set some guardrails within which people can experiment. As they say today, fail fast and fail forward, right? So, I really don't think that a virtual world or an in-person world will make a difference to it. It's a culture that you inculcate in an organization. And once that culture has been inculcated, wherein, people know that I can try something new. If it works out, it will have an exponential result for the company. Even if it does not, I will take the failures with me and I'll move on and try something new. Again, as a leader, what needs to happen is that when the team fails, you stand in front of them. But when the team succeeds, you stand behind them. That's the most important thing. And that is what builds the psychological safety. And an employee in an organization needs to have the comfort that I have the might of an organization behind me. And I think that's the biggest psychological safety that we can give to anybody who works with us. And if I were to relate it to the current pandemic times, it cannot get exemplified any more than that. Where companies have gone out of their way to make sure that the employees are safe, the families are safe, and that brings in that psychological safety wherein people now want to give their best, even more than what they gave yesterday. The book explains it very well, but to our audience, I would recommend two videos on this whole psychological safety thing. There is one by Simon Sinek. Sangeeta, you talked about Simon Sinek in the beginning. He's got a video which says Circle of Safety. So if you find it, it isn't a long video, but it's a beautiful video. He links it to how army setups work. He also links it back to the time when we hadn't evolved. We were all hunters. So I think it's a beautiful way of how human beings have evolved, but the psychological safety has always been a factor out there. And the second video is a video of our beloved former president APJ Kalam, where he talks about the launch of SLV3 and how he was a part of it, and the first launch failed. And his manager came to him and he said, "Let's do a press conference." And they went into the press conference, and his manager, he owned it up. He said, "My team failed. It's a failure on me, and I have trust in my team, and they'll improve from here on." And when they succeeded, the manager went to APJ Kalam and said, "Go lead the press conference now." So it starts at the top. We need to give our people that comfort zone wherein they can try and they can fail. But they have to learn from that failure. You can't keep repeating those mistakes. But unless you try new things, you can never succeed, and you have to create that circle of safety around them so that people try new things.
Yes, beautifully brought out, Sakaar. Definitely, it resonates a lot with me. And having the psychological safety is so important. And you rightly touched upon the culture aspect. Now, if it's there as part of the organization culture, I think people find that comfort to be their real self and not really wear a facade and then pretend who they are not to be. So I think, yes, that's the important aspect of the psychological safety. So continuing.
Be the evangelist for courage is, I think one of the aspects that the book touches upon. And I think Sakaar brings that out very well, that how do you make sure you create that environment, and how do you make people take those bets? And after having come to the world of startups, I've seen this play out time and time again. How founders themselves take those bets and how they encourage their own people to do something audacious. And one example right in front of us is Zomato IPO. I mean, if you ask us about a year and a half back, did we as investors think they could do this? I think the answer would have been a resounding no. But the teams been very audacious. They've challenged themselves every now and then, and they delivered. Before, right when pandemic started, nobody thought this company could stand a chance to survive this. But where they are today is quite amazing. So I mean, completely resonate with what was just spoken about.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you have the experience of being there and done that. So thanks for that, Sandeep. So continuing with the high performance, we just spoke about the high performance teams. So continuing with the same thing, in high performance teams, some of the things that apart from money, what else plays a factor is like the purpose, the pride each one of the leaders have, their ambition, the ego especially. So as investors, what are your thoughts, and like how do you handle these aspects? Because we have seen so many co-founders also who fall apart and have these ego issues, the pride, the difference in the thought of purpose and so on and so forth. So how would you handle that?
I think first and foremost is the very important realization that outside of money there are many other vital motivators, and you have to appeal. And no human being is same, right? So you have to chalk out that plan, that strategy, or whatever good word that you may want to ascribe to, and reach out to them emotionally and rationally in different ways. And also, I think it is very important, for you to know when to pick out those battles. I think the timing on dwelling on those issues or picking the ones that need attention has to be utmost. And, the book brings that out in many ways. And I think when Eric was being asked to be, take a step down, how Bill helped him gulp that decision and then bring that, point back in, or how he helped Steve Jobs, or rather tried preventing the board from not taking him out, but they finally did that, and when the time was right, he brought him back. So I think that timing bit, it is very, very important. And of course, you don't get it right. I mean, you as you build on experience, you start getting better and better and better at it. So it's important to understand what matters to you and how do you want to approach it. I mean, a couple of examples. I mean, one in my early days when I was a P&L leader for a lending business, one of our business heads had, built this whole model of taking, credit cards from different channels across the country. And, unfortunately, when 2008 happened, the global financial crisis, unsecured business was taking massive hits. And he was not ready to let this go because, this was his child and, he thought this was his dream work. He wanted, and he thought that this was a phase that could go out and, he could come out of it easy. If you went at that point in time and appealed to him rationally, it wouldn't have mattered to him because, he just felt that you were taking away his baby. So I think we had to cultivate on that discussion, lead between me and the chief risk officer. We had to bring that point to him in many different ways without bringing the fact that, we have to shut down this channel, because shutting down meant that, we were shutting doors of conversation with him. So you had to bring it around in many different ways and then make him understand and let him take that call that this is the right thing to do for the organization. I think, over here in the startup world as well, right? I mean, all ideas are founders' babies, and, they pursue them like nobody's business. And it is not that every idea meets and ends up successfully. There are times when you have to mutate. There are times when you have to change course. There are times when none of this works, and you probably take a knock on your knees. Therefore, does that mean that, for every knock that you get, you kind of go and tell them that this is not the right thing to do, because then you go and disturb their balance and how they think. But, bringing these conversations at the right time is when it becomes important. And I think other aspect which Sakaar mentioned was failure. I mean, does one failure lead you to take that decision? Or when series of things happen, that's when you take that decision? Or similarly, series of behavior patterns that lead you to take that decision? I think, and the book also talks about that, right? That how, if you have to deal with people who are super smart, how do you deal with them? All the time they're smart and they're delivering great, but if they start disrupting the character of the team and the culture in the team, that's when you take these conversations or those bulls by the horn. So that's my thought process on how do you deal with some of the other aspects outside of money.
Thanks, Sandeep. That was good to hear your perspective on that. Thanks for that. So, Sakaar, the book says executive teams must have a coach if they want to perform at their best. So as a seasoned HR professional, how do you think organizations can encourage to work with a coach? Because, there could be a lot of resistance as well, even though, they may be willing. And of course, you coach only the coachable. But from an organization's perspective, I would like to hear your views.
Definitely. So, how do you go about convincing a team of executives that they need a coach? It also, lies in the need for a coach. The answer somewhere lies in the need for a coach. Now, let's look at executive teams. They're typically a bunch of highly successful individuals, who have, a series of successes behind them. And as a result, they are type A egoistic personalities, with all due respect, but, they are not a team. They are a bunch of highly successful individuals. It's a coach that converts them into a team, right? So that they realize how to work with each other. Now, this coaching can also be done by the leader of the troops, leader of the group, which in these circumstances would be a CEO of the company. But many a times, you need somebody who's not burdened by the day-to-day execution and the grind of operations. And that's when they can do it better. So that's where, I think Sandeep said in the beginning thing that if somebody is being asked a question these days, and there's a problem. Executive teams need a coach today. But why a specific team needs a coach? That need could vary from one team to another. So as an HR professional, or maybe as an HR person who's a part of the team, and somewhere is a trusted advisor to the leader of the team, we need to see what is the need for the team, and that need is what is articulated to the group. And I say we do it three ways, and I call it the 3Ds. Those 3Ds is data, demonstrate, and demand. And you use them, interchangeably. You use them together sometimes. So data is primarily you put in front of the team is what has the team been achieving, what they're set out to achieve. Well, there's a lot of data around that, right? You also go and talk to the team about what are other teams similar to us who have benefited from a coach. And try to draw a similarity between where we are, where those teams were at one point of time, and how they could exponentially grow because they relied and believed on a coach. And then comes demand. Demand is primarily you create the demand either through the CEO, the head of that executive team, or through the board. You create the demand. So sometimes you start with the demand, and then you show the data, and then you come up with best examples, which help you demonstrate other success. Sometimes you start with the data. Every human being has a head and a heart, right? So in this team also, some get driven by their head, some get driven by their heart. So those who get driven by their head, you show them the data. Those who get driven by their heart, you show them how others have benefited from it. What's the common purpose? Are you getting towards a common purpose or not? As I said, these are all individuals. The coach makes them a team, but they're still driven by success. So the best thing to tell them is that, are you being successful as a group? And if you're not being successful as a group, then you need somebody who will make you successful as a group, who will make you work in tandem. And those are the things that you go and talk to the group. But I'll still tell you that there are especially in the Indian context, it's still not a very well accepted concept. People still talk about, and again, as Sandeep said, what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with us? Why are you doubting our capability? And that's where you have to go and tell people that it's not about fixing something that's broken. It's about just getting and operating at a different level.
Yes, I totally agree with what you say, because this mindset shift has to be there. And I love the words that you used, exponential growth. So that is something, yes, the key thing. Yes, thanks for that, Sakaar. Sandeep, when they say support means giving the tools that is required, giving the information, training, and coaching that they need. And it also means continuous effort to develop people's skills. This is what the book says. So what are your thoughts on this, and what sort of support should the investors actually extend to these sort of companies? You're on mute, Sandeep.
Apologies. I think support is given and manifests in many ways, and I think Sequoia has been a biggest advocate of that, not just in the last couple of years, but for over a decade now. And I can probably talk about that to give you some examples of how we believe that it's not just money that we bring on the table. And honestly, we've always felt that money is just commodity and everybody could bring that. But what we bring, of course, of many years and decades of investing experience, but what we also believe that we bring is this whole array of services that we have today in the team, and we call them as a team of specialists, which include people like myself. Though maybe a year and a half back, we were having this supports from a few areas of finance, recruitment, HR, practices, and marketing. I think, but over the last 1.5 years, we've extended that to other aspects. Like, for example, now we have somebody in the tech team who guides all our portfolio companies. We have somebody in the public policy place who can help companies navigate through different challenges that they face. And essentially, it's that ecosystem of support that we provide to them. People who have come with many years of experience can help the companies, guide the companies, support the companies, mentor the people in these companies. So for example, one of my jobs is not just to review my portfolio companies or their performance, or things, look at things that they're not doing well, but also make sure that this group of CFOs, for example, from 200 CFOs that we have, how cohesive they are they exchanging ideas, are they sharing thoughts, are they sharing best practices, how to get them together, how to talk to them about some of their journeys, because sometimes the CFO could be a lonely person in an organization, especially in a startup kind of a place. So how do you do all of that? I think, and we give a lot of importance to that, and we encourage all functions, at least not all, but I would say most important functions, to kind of do that for our portfolio companies. And not just that, we run programs. For example, today we have a program called Surge, which is early stage investing, essentially where you could actually go and fund even an idea. And what we do with those founders is we kind of take them around, get them to hear from different people, from our teams in China, from our teams in US, from our folks over here locally, people like me, and go and talk and present to our founders. So essentially you're creating an ecosystem where not just capital, but knowledge, experiences, learnings are shared on plethora of issues, a plethora of subjects, and that helps the founders just get better with their choices, get better with their decisions, and hopefully make better companies, and make great teams out of the companies that they are in. And we run similar programs across stages of our companies.
I think that is awesome. So especially the startups founders and the entrepreneurs on the show who are watching this would have definitely found that useful. Thanks a lot, Sandeep, for sharing that. Sakaar, I would like to ask you, the book talks about investing in creating real emotional bonds. Like, we did speak about that, emotional bonds between people at work. So how do you think this can actually be made possible in the current times, especially, people working from home? How do you think this can be brought about and encourage this emotional bond between the teams? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Again, whether it's in person or it's in virtual world, we need to know the real person behind that name and the face. Right? It's easier to do when you're in person, when you see somebody in flesh and blood, versus when you see somebody on a camera. It's difficult to do that, but as leaders, we need to make sure that we don't treat people as resources. Right? There is everybody's individuality celebrated. Right? Get to know them, what excites them, what ticks them, get to know about their family, what are their hobbies. And what we realize as leaders is that when we get to know these things, we end up spending more time with our people. And when we spend time with them, we automatically develop those bonds. Right? We'll be surprised that when we know all this, our conversation and approach is so much more humane. We're not just talking about work. Right? When we don't know all these things, then you have to remind yourself that I have to start a conversation by asking, how was your day? I have to ask some questions around that, which I don't actually mean to ask, but I'm asking those questions because I don't want to jump into work directly. But I'm consciously reminding myself. But when we know people that well, automatically the conversation will start with, what has happened around your world, right? Like, I have a team member who is big time into football. And I don't I have never played that game. I don't follow football, but because I know that he watches those games and those games go late in the night. When I talk to him, I automatically get to it because I would have read the result in the in the newspaper. So the conversation starts there, right? If we don't know what excites our people, then the conversation will always be about work, and that would be very monotonous, right? There would be times when, and to your point, in today's times when you're not sitting across the table with a person, even so you have to sometimes the cameras might not be on, so you have to take your cues from the the modulation of the voice, how a person is doing, right? And if if you take those cues, but you know the person well, you can ask a person what's wrong. If you don't know the person well, you can ask a question, are you okay? The person, invariably will say yes, but you would have a follow-through question to ask. But when you know the person, you definitely will have a follow-through question to ask. You would also have the comfort to drill, saying that, well, you're okay doesn't sound convincing. Tell me what's wrong, what's happening. I don't see the same energy in your voice that I typically see. Right. So getting to know people develops that bond wherein, you can ask questions which you otherwise would be uncomfortable asking. I'll leave you with one mantra which I have learned in my work life. When I started, I used to tell people that treat people the way you want to be treated. But over the years, I've realized that I was wrong. We should treat people the way they want to be treated. And that's how the world works today.
Right.
And you can only treat them the way they want to be treated only when you know who they are, what works for them, what hobbies they have, who's in the family, and what values they stand for.
That's an amazing tip to say, treat people the way that they want. That's a very good learning even for me personally. Thanks for sharing that, Sakaar. So I think, it'll be good to open up for some questions from the audience. I know only the three of us have been talking all along. So if you have questions, please post it in the chat box, or if you're watching it live on YouTube or Facebook, please post your comments. We will pick it up and we will be happy to call them out. I would request Group Captain Vijay Kumar to please call out those questions, and any questions for any of us or specifically to any of us, please feel free and share those questions.
Yeah, you are ready to go to the question session now? Are you ready? We have got questions. Shall we go ahead?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think very inspiring. I learned a lot today because at this place, even being in MMA, I always look up to your coach. I keep asking people, not only people who are achieved great success in life, I also ask youngsters who are just started join the company, or guys who are studying MBA. They're all brilliant. Ask them for ideas. They come and tell you. They regularly engage with you. That is one thing. Is very fantastic. What is the takeaway? We got around 800 viewers watching the program. I'm quite impressed for a startup. First time we're doing this, and idea is to we want to reach out to the benchmark what we have been usually getting. Sometimes some of our events we get even 10,000 plus viewers watch this program. So I think slowly we'll reach that number. We got a number of questions. I will keep addressing. Sangeeta, you can seeing the question, you can direct them home to answer. The question from Albert, is Johnson. The Johnson is from Nagpur. You want to know, how do I manage Bill Gates' term apparent genius who are high performing but difficult team members? How do you manage these people in your organization?
Sakaar, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, definitely. See, again, geniuses, they come with, like what I call, a chip on their shoulder. And as long as, if, and maybe you didn't say that, but I'll say it, if there are those idiosyncrasies that they bring along with them, as long as those idiosyncrasies don't impact other people in the team, you learn to live with them, right? You need to see that the output that they are producing far exceeds the work that it creates for you to manage them. And if that is what is happening, then it's okay to live with those idiosyncrasies, let them perform, because the output that they're producing for you is taking your team to a totally different level. But if the way that individual works, if it's disrupting your team, it's disrupting the culture, the values that you stand for, then you don't compromise on that. You'll have to take a call. You'll have, you will have to go and have a conversation with that individual and let the person know that the way they work is not the way we want to work in this group or in this team. As they always say, you hire people for attitude, aptitude can be taught. So, in that regard, so again, I'll summarize it in a way where I say that, if what they produce is being produced without impacting the team culture that you want to build, it's okay to live with those idiosyncrasies. All of us, as I said, celebrate individuality, come with our idiosyncrasies. But if the way they operate impacts the team culture, it is pulling the rest of the team down, then you don't let that happen. You either work with the person, you get the person a coach, And if that doesn't work, then there is always somebody else who can do that for you. It's okay to take tough decisions and replace people.
I mean, I have a one-word answer for it. Let not the culture become toxic, and if it becomes toxic, then you need to deal with it.
Okay. So I'll move to the next question. This is a question from Mr. Gurumurthy from Chennai. This is addressed to Sandeep. Sandeep, what he wants to know, he says, as an investor, do you encourage startup to take decisions without fear of failure? And how do you handhold them? Can you give me one anecdote without the naming the company so that I can understand and appreciate the situation better?
I mean, I think there are many success stories over there where, founders would have probably not listened to our advice and would have gone very opposite to where they are. And I think during the conversation, I was alluding to something like that. Especially when the right time to make the change, or the time to make the change, the conviction and the clarity that the founders hold, I think holds them well, and they're able to move the organization in that manner. And I think that just played out in one of probably India's most successful consumer internet IPO, which you are witnessing as we speak.
Thank you. I think it's a good. Shall we move to the next question, or anybody would like to add anything? Sangeeta would like to add anything to more?
Let's move on.
Okay.
Let's move on. There must be a lot of questions.
Okay. The next question is from Mr. Raju, Facebook from Bangalore. He said, I read this book and that when there is a problem, Bill wouldn't dig into the problem, that you would dig into the team dealing with it. How do I make sure that I do not micromanage this process and irritate my entire team of my all supervising?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think it all depends on the kind of culture that has been set. So because culture flows from the top, so you need to set the right culture and ensure the teams are prepared to handle that.
I would just add to it. I think the way Bill was dealing with them, many a time what happens is that if the team is not performing, it could be because you can come from the top. You can see if you have defined the roles well, and if everybody understands the roles well, and if the roles complement. But there is one way to go from bottoms up also and see if there are interpersonal issues. Everybody's role is well defined. People understand their role. They know what they're supposed to do. But there are interpersonal issues within the team members, which is not letting them perform what they set out to perform. And I think that's what Bill says in the book, that he looks at the people. Are they at the core of why the team is not performing?
Great, sir. Here's a question from Babu Krishnamurthy. Actually, he's an expert, but he's got a question. There are beliefs in the Indian context against going with a coach. What is the opinion of the panelists need to be done to change this climate? I also want to add one more, because I always found MMA, many women don't come and take a coach, and they prefer a woman coach, or they are they don't come forward to take a coach. Why is that? How do you change the mindset? Because you work quite a lot in the MMA Women Managers Forum. You're going to do a lot of work on that. How do you change the mindset of women that, yes, you should take a call and take a coach, be it men or women, whoever you are convenient.
It's gender neutral. So I think firstly, a lot of awareness has to come. Like if you see people around you who work with a coach and they have benefited, that's when, slowly each one will start to realize. So I guess, books like this will definitely open up the mindset of people.
So Babu's question also answered. The Indian context, again, why the people are not going to the coach? Yes. What is the opinion of the panelists? Need to change this mindset.
Awareness, which helps them shift the mindset. That is my take. Sandeep and Sakaar, do you have anything to add there?
I think Sandeep was trying to say something. I'll let Sandeep go first, and I'll go after.
No, I mean, I laid out my personal example over here, right? That it was tough for me to initially accept that I don't need a coach, and why do I need a coach? And probably the day it was announced to me, shared with me, it was probably very, very deflating. But I think it's my CFO knew me very well. He knew me as an individual, as a person very well. He could connect that why I'm saying so, and he didn't respond to all of that day itself. He knew that I'll probably take some time to digest this and think about it more rationally. and the next day he picked up this conversation again with me, and it was also going back to what the book lays out. It was because my manager had very good understanding of who I was an individual, what drove me, what did not drive me. He knew about my family, I knew about his family, so there was a little bit of that understanding. and 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 hand on heart, I always knew that he's going to talk about or do good for me. There is no, he's not doing it because, sorry Sakaar, that HR is asking him to do it. He's doing it because he believes this is the right thing for me to do. I think it plays out. It has to play out both ways. Both sides have to. The taker has to understand the need, and the giver has to lay it out in a manner which comes out as positive. It feels it's constructive. I think it has to come out like that.
Correct. I think as long as they understand that they are going to get benefited out of it, that makes a difference.
So I wanted to address the Indian context to the question that Babu asked. See, we are, or at least our generation was brought up in a way wherein if you didn't stand first in the class, then like you were no good. So we all have been brought up in a way where we think that there is nobody better than us, and how can somebody tell me what to do? That's and when we get into a more and more competitive world, we realize that there are smarter people around us. Now, how we deal with those smart people around us, the tone has to be set. I'll again say right at the top of the organization, wherein the leader tells people around them that I'm not the smartest person in this room. I don't have all the answers. I have surrounded myself with people who are smarter than me, and those are you people who are smarter than me. When we have a culture where everybody listens to each other, we are willing to take feedback and criticism from each other within the organization. We are not competing with each other, but we are competing with forces outside the organization. When we are disrupting ourselves rather than having somebody else disrupt us, when this culture comes in an organization, we will be open to have a coach.
And I mean, just to build on that, sorry, Sakaar,
yeah.
When I was talking to my CFO and saying why I need to, have a coach, he confided in me and said, you know what, 3 months back, I went with the same coach. And that just, made it so easy for me. I mean, there's just one simple statement just made it so easy for me. And I think I was just trying to build on what Sakaar was saying, that, this whole attitude about, us Indians saying that mujhse behtar kaun, I think sometimes comes in our way of embracing learning.
Absolutely.
Great insight.
Yeah.
We have a question from Mr. Arsha from Campbell. He says, as an employee, I feel that my boss listens more to experienced guys' ideas than listening to our perspective, maybe because we aren't so experienced. How do I convey this to my boss politely yet effectively, make sure that he also listens to me?
See, again, maybe I'll take this. It's not easy if your boss has not set that culture in the organization. It's not easy. I can give you a lot of yarn sitting here, but I understand it's not easy if you haven't seen it. We all are driven by the experiences. We all are driven by the behaviors that we see in the organization. Having said that, and assuming that maybe your boss has not set that culture wherein he or she is asking for feedback and acting on feedback, give it a try. Then the worst thing that can happen is that he or she will not act on it, right? But don't let it stay with you for the want of trying. And if you have ideas, don't just go with the idea. Go with something more than the idea. Tell him or her how would you execute on it. Tell him or her that you have thought through it, you have researched it, and this is how overall the team can benefit from it, or how the company can become better. Idea alone, the beauty of the idea lies in its execution. So tell the person how you would execute on it. So again, I'll start from the fact that if the manager is not open to feedback, then you go with the idea and you basically sell your idea and with the concepts of how you'll execute it. And if the person himself or herself is hungry for success, trust me, next time they'll ask you for your ideas.
We got another few minutes. 3-4 minutes. I'll try and use in.
There's a nice question in the chat box. Yes. So I think he wants to know the difference between a coach and a consultant. So I think that's a very nice question. So to tell you, a consultant is, an expert. He's a domain expert, tells you more. And then, if you have a solution, if you have a challenge, he tells you what to do. He instructs you. Whereas a coach does not give you solutions. A coach kindles your thoughts. A coach is your accountability partner, and coach helps you to find your best solution for whatever challenge that you have. So a coach is not somebody telling you, hey, do this or do that, but then makes you to think and then challenges your thoughts and then makes you to figure out yourself what is the best way to go ahead and get the solution for the challenge that you wanted.
You hire a consultant for a shorter duration. You hire a consultant for a problem or for a specific thing. Coach works with you all along. And the best analogy that I always draw is that whether it's the field of sports or whether it's corporate life, there's a coach, and you need to see what the coach does. The coach is always with the team. You can't have a coach for a 6 month and expect the person to deliver wonders for the team. Coach is with you for a longer duration. Consultants are for specific assignments. Sorry, Sandeep, I spoke on top of you.
No. I was just about to say the same thing, that consultants, address problem from a distance, and coaches jump along with you in problem solving.
True.
And the duration also is exactly what you were referring to.
Take two last questions, another 3 minutes there. It's a question addressed to Sandeep again. This question is from Mr. Raj Gopal from Chennai Facebook. He says, how can coach help to build a mindset, fear of failure? He's talking about fear of failure, which you mentioned. How can coach help to build such a mindset when organizations still don't celebrate failures because in this competitive world, to encourage leaders to be innovative and take risks? How do you change this culture in an organization?
And this probably is where India is, and I think a lot again comes from the fact that as a country, we our demographics are changing over a period of time, and risk taking is now being more and more encouraged in the way we think. All of us think, right? All of us, if you go back 20 years, we were all taking safe bets in terms of become an engineer, doctor, CA, MBA, but now you have multiple career options, and parents are also equally embracing all those options for their kids. So I think as this is a DNA that we are going through, if you compare us to US, for example, I think this DNA has been set over there. But I think the winds of change are here. As startups become more successful, there will be more entrepreneurship that will come in our bloods. There will be more entrepreneurship that parents would want their kids to embrace. And I think these are the wheels of change that India is going through right now. We're not yet there, but I think, have we done enough? Yes. I think the last few years clearly tell you that we've done enough. And I think the next decade, you will clearly see a lot of entrepreneurs, is my view, because the way we now have started thinking, the way we now started embracing these young companies and having respect for them. I can tell you 5 years back, it was so difficult for me to even hire somebody for a startup, especially from a finance background, because, this set of folks are generally a little bit more risk averse. Now you see far more openness to come into a startup because people know that, these companies are not just there to get acquired or merged, or, maybe after having 5 years of a high and then fall off, but they can become something meaningful. And it is great to be part of that journey. So I think this is changing. I think India is at that cusp of change, or maybe already has taken a step away from that cusp. I'm quite confident that this will happen.
One last question for the evening. We almost come to the end of the scheduled time for us. And there's a question from Mr. Yusuf from Chennai. He says that you all mentioned during the discussion that Bill suggested that only coach the coachable. So should I just ignore the rest, even though I have a confident and they are very competent to, I thought they'll be coaching. How do we take a decision which is conflicting at times based on what Bill says?
So firstly, I think the individual has to realize that if they want to maximize their potential and if they're going to get benefited, they are going to get better at what they do. Working with a coach can help them. So once they have this awareness and realization, I think the mind tends to open up. And like I said, looking at people around you, if they have been working with coaches, then it definitely, you also feel, okay, why shouldn't I work? So the best way is to, ensure you have a chemistry with the coach, whether the coach is somebody who's credentialed, because, many times a lot of people tend to call themselves a coach, especially if they are a domain expert. But then it's good to know if they are credentialed, if they have the right testimonials, and then see if you have the working rapport with the person you're choosing as a coach. I think that will make the difference.
Lovely. Thank you so much, the distinguished panelists, Sandeep, Sangeeta, and Sakaar. Fascinating evening, and I'm quite sure many people watching this program really would understand, because I know as a golfer I've seen some of the golfers have 5 to 6 coaches actually. For every area, they could do the coaching. In sports, I mean, I'm telling you, sports is one area, but so coaching is very, very important for anyone if you want really, because something the coach, as you said, personally think. Maybe Sangeeta would like to do a closing comment before I deliver the formal vote of thanks.
Yes, yes. So I think to conclude, I would definitely say that everybody needs a coach. You, me, I mean, all of us, because like we got the example from the sports world also. I think everybody needs a coach, and in fact, that's what Eric, the author of the book, has also said, that coaching has to be the highest priority. And what one needs to know about coaching is that a coach does not tell you what to do. The coach is only challenging you, kindling your thoughts, and making you find whatever is the right solution. And the coach is a confidant, and whatever are the coaching conversations, they're all confidential, so one can feel free to open up and speak up what's there in their mind. And like we've been saying, Bill coached only the coachable. So only if a person is ready and receptive to be coached, that's when the best results of transformation can be brought about. So that is what I would like to conclude and sum it up with.
Thank you, Sangeeta. And once again, many thanks to Sandeep, Sangeeta, and Sakaar, and all the viewers watching this program who joined in big number. Please don't block your diary on every third Friday of the month. We'll communicate to you who is the next speaker, who is going to be next outstanding panelist, who are going to discuss on the theme of the book. As a token of our appreciation, it's what we do from MMA, and on behalf of each of the panelists who have taken the time to be with us this evening to share their insight, we'll present about 300 face masks to the people around and go, and also under mini sanitizer, because still 100% vaccination is done. This is all we thought this will help them, the people who are really not vaccinated. And this is what my team from MMA goes around, and not only we do the vaccination to the people in different areas, and also we give them rations, what they need, and when they are not employed in a month, and also give them masks, make sure understanding. I thought that's one reason we are able to really contain some of the thing happen around our center, which is located in Mount Road. Thanks so much for sparing your time, and we really look forward to seeing you more in MMA. Thanks, Sangeeta, for facilitating. That's a great beginning. I'm quite sure we are going to go from strength to strength, and we'll have big numbers really hooked on to this program and start reading that habit of reading the books to be a great reader, to be a great leader. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, everyone. Thank you,
MMA,
MMA.
for
Thank you, Sangeeta.
facilitating this. Thank you all.
Thanks, Sangeeta. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Sakaar.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.